Thursday edition of My Stock Scanner Live. The weekend is getting closer, but the markets are still working hard. Let's evaluate today's stocks. The 3-point playbook sets at 2.4. Hans-Henrik Nielsen, warfare is hard to predict, and so is the market during such times. But we had a little bit of an uptick yesterday. Are we playing defense right now with the playbook?
Not really, and we are not really trying to predict anything, basically. I am looking at, I have a list of interesting stocks to go into. So it's not like we have decided to be out of the market. We just got a lot of sell signals the other day.
And those we follow. Liam Flavelle, if I look to BROADCOM today, I want to bet that a lot of the AI jitters nerves out there have been calmed down a little bit. That was impressive.
It was impressive, but Nvidia was impressive a week or so ago. I think there are a lot more jitters out there than that. I wouldn't be surprised if this. I would be surprised if this reignites the market anyway.
But it looks good in the pre-market for sure right now.
It does look very, very good, and it's a strong company. It's a brilliant company. So, I'm not saying it's not an investable company. I'm just saying the AI jitters are probably here to stay for a while.
And we're going to look at the 3-point playbook for BROADCOM later in the show, no doubt about it. In a market full of noise, we stick to our system. Is it a quality company? Does it have a real upside? And is now the right time to buy? That is the 3-point playbook that we build any investment on. And today we start with the macro picture because Bitcoin is up, oil moving the same direction, but gold is down. That sounds a little bit weird, taking into consideration that we're in the midst of a war in the Middle East. There's a lot of volatility in the market, but there's also opportunity. In Denmark, Novo Nordisk went up, and we have numbers from Scandinavian Tobacco Group that faces a lot of challenges, and NTG Transport also shows signs of uncertainty. We stay in the Nordic with the Nordic Semiconductor that yesterday jumped more than 6%. And since it's Thursday, and since we have Liam Flavelle here, then we of course have Thursday Tech. The battlefield is also cyber warfare. We're going to talk about that because hackers and cybersecurity collide. BROADCOM, we're going to talk more about them in a minute. And I have a number of the day that's $124.62 billion. And that's going to lead us to another 3-point playbook because we're going to talk about which company has that number. But first, let's talk about what's happening with Bitcoin and with gold and with oil. Basically, we're looking macro. Liam, Bitcoin is making a bit of a comeback. I thought we were sort of in a risk-off situation where everybody would run to gold and away from Bitcoin.
Well, that is the standard playbook that people generally use in this sort of situation. They get out of all their risk assets, which we sort of saw the other day where just everything plunged. But we were scratching our heads, I must admit. Bitcoin has gone up in the last few days, as you can see here. So it bottomed out a few weeks ago. What we tend to look at with Bitcoin is it seems at the moment to be more of a mop-up of liquidity in the market, where if you've got extra funds, then you think, well, I might as well just stick it on Bitcoin because it always goes up, doesn't it? It's down about 40% from its top, so that proves that that's not the case, and it has dropped further than that before. So, but Bitcoin's an interest. It shows that there's still some risk appetite out there. And that's the other thing we use Bitcoin for. We don't invest in it, but we do look to see what the retail investors generally like, and that tends to play out within the Bitcoin side of things. Oil as well. Oil is up 3% today. That's the light crude. The Brent crude is up about 84, 85, something like that. So yeah, and gas is pretty much stable. Gold is pretty much stable where it is as well. So we think there's a various amount of elements here, but we think people aren't panicking yet. If we go back in, if we look at the S&P 500, it dropped 3.3% and is on its way back up again, which you think that's a bit strange. But if we go back to when the Ukraine was invaded by Russia, 24th of February, the market actually dropped a bit initially, then went up 10%. In the next 34 days, then it dropped 20% after that. So there's an element where this is history may not repeat itself, but it could well do, and that does show us that people can think, okay, the worst isn't going to happen until actually they think, oh, shit, yeah, I might have been wrong, and the worst actually may happen.
But
So
let me ask both of you, because it seems like people really lack short-term memory in that sense. Because if they think that just because we had war for 3 days, it's over and we're done, and now it's back to normal, is that the way the market thinks?
Well, there's someone helping the market to think, and it's not because we want to go in conspiracy mode, but having looked what comes out of Goldman Sachs and the likes the last couple of days, they have kind of said, just buy the dip. And one might think that is a bit of a way to get rid of some of their own stocks. The fact is that right now, Qatar has shut down for their entire LNG production. They're sitting on 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. Iraq shut down their largest oil fields, accounting for 3% of the entire oil production in the world. There's no way that is not going to affect something. 92% of the traffic through Hormuz Strait has disappeared. If that opens up in the next couple of days, probably no harm is done. But if we are going 1, 2, 3 weeks in like this, there's going to be some headache around this later on.
Liam, what I hear Hans-Henrik say is that somebody's not doing the math here, because if that is basically 1/3 of the oil or natural gas gone from the world market, it will be felt. It will be more than a pinch.
It will, and I think what we're seeing here is a broader picture play out in what we've seen for the last year, which is where the retail investors have really been in the driving seat, and a lot of fund managers and professional investors have been scratching their heads thinking, hang on, I thought we were the smart money here. I think that is changing slightly, and with these sort of lack of movement sort of shows a lack of perception of risk as well for the retail investors that could come and bite them in the future, and the big guys will definitely use that to their advantage.
And that's what just was Hans-Henrik was talking about. Remember, Hans-Henrik has a morning ride every morning before 9 o'clock on weekdays. It comes out, it's called the market scan. That's where he basically takes his helicopter, raises above the market and takes a look down and tell us these big movements. That's what he does every day before 9 o'clock. Available on our webpage, MyStockScanner.com. If you are a member. Now we need to make it more investable, and what's more investable for Danes than Novo, because it seems like everybody has Novo. And finally, I'm almost going to say springtime for Novo, because they went up by 6% yesterday, and if I look to the markets today, 1.6% up. Hans-Henrik, let's get out the champagne.
Let me tell you about a concept called the dead cat bounce. There is it's not certain that is what we see right now, but if you stand on 10th floor in a skyscraper and you throw a dead cat out of over the balcony, when it hits the ground, it still gives a little bounce, even though it's dead.
I think we should probably point out this isn't a phrase you've just created. This is an old-fashioned phrase that lots of people use.
It could be just created. No, it is way old. I think 100 years old in the market. I'm not saying that Novo is a dead cat, because I actually think they have some interesting products. I'm just saying that when you look at the financial news, you might think sometimes that the Novo is going through the roof here. And we do like to zoom a bit out, look at the bigger picture. And in the bigger picture, you can basically not see what is happening in the last couple of days. I'm not too certain. We have drawn in these levels here, and it might go up to, I don't know, 290, and that is where the test really is. So there is, 15, 17% upwards. So the financial news will have plenty of times to say that we are now in the golden age of Novo before we get a test and see if we should go further down or continue up. As always, we will absolutely not try and predict where it goes. We are a bit like the weatherman looking out the window and say, oh, it's going up, or it's raining outside. We look at quality, we look at the potential, and it is a good, solid stock. However, as we have shown a million times, we do not like the value chart here. It's going too sideways. There's not enough room for us being wrong, which we are often.
And I hope that your stock cat, Wilma, is okay, because when you're talking about dead cats being thrown from buildings, I want to make...
It's not my stock oracle, Wilma. No, she's good and well and whispering. Good.
I hope that Wilma is not a smoker, because the days are numbered in that sense that the Scandinavian Tobacco Group came up with numbers today, dropped 25%. Hans-Henrik, a reason for a drop like that? Have people stopped smoking? Have people stopped using tobacco? Is that the case here?
Well, they kind of have, but that is not the reason for the big drop today. They have edged into that chewing tobacco, these nicotine bags you put in the mouth. So they are on that wagon as well, of course. The reason for this is they came out with some guidance that were not completely satisfying, but the big thing here is that they are a dividend-paying stock, normally about 10%, meaning a lot of the dividend investors are going for Scandinavian Tobacco Group. They just something like cut that in half, or that was a suggestion to the board at least. And that means that a lot of dividend investors are throwing it on the street right now.
So up in smoke for Scandinavian Tobacco Group. That's what we are seeing in the exchange right now. NTG, so we go from STG to NTG, and this is the transport company. And Hans-Henrik, we have had that company in one of our face-offs against a much bigger one, DSV. But NTG, a little bit of a lackluster in regards to earnings and numbers that they put out, and they're being punished a little bit in the market. I think they're down 4 or 5% at the moment.
Yeah, they went up yesterday and then going down today. So yeah, there's a bit of noise here, but it is noise. Again, before we look at the 3-point playbook, we look at the bigger picture, and we can say without a doubt that had we had it, we would have gone out up here around 409.
Can't see your
Then you
screen.
need to share your
Oh,
screen.
you cannot read my mind. That is,
No, we're trying.
You really need to practice.
Mumbo
here.
jumble all of it.
Take too
This
little
is where
time,
we go.
so-
Yeah. Looking at the bigger picture here, we would have gone out up around the 400 mark. Had we not gone out there, we would have gone out around 330. We would definitely not have stayed in. As we talked about in the webinar yesterday, we talked about our exit rules. They're quite clear, and we will not be in it. And yes, it is going a bit up and down here, but that is day-to-day noise. Looking quickly at the overall picture here, quality is actually decent. The earnings per share have been going down, and they have promised it will soon start to go up. That's not really the picture we like to see. Revenue is going up. They had an outlier back here in 18, so we will mostly be looking at the numbers here. And 24 had a bit of a drop in return on capital employed, free cash flow going down. So it's not like it's a complete disaster. It's just not having those many thousand stocks to pick and choose from in the market. We could easily find something that showed a better movement. It is looking fairly good on the potential side here if they can keep up the earnings that people think they can. And I think in our system here, there is a massive number of analysts of one. So this is probably the one analyst that comes out with a earnings projection here.
I think he's got shares in the company.
Yeah, there could be the CEO that had registered as an analyst here. Anyway, if they can keep between 13 and 22 in PE, there is some upside. It's not a company I would look at. And of course, as we showed, the technical side is in a downtrend.
So far, the Danish stocks, we stay within the Nordic region because we finally have, and it's because we have our Thursday Tech, we finally have a challenger against NVIDIA, right, Liam? Because when we talk about Nordic Semiconductor, we're almost there.
Yeah, you're not far away from it. Yeah. I mean, back in the real world, let's just have a look at the stock itself. It's a pretty good stock. It doesn't really do AI. It hasn't got AI anywhere in its description. If it did that, it would really rock it. I must admit, I would guess, because everything else does with AI in it these days. It's effectively what's called an Internet of Things, which is, it was a phrase that's been around for 20 odd years, probably even more than that, where we're going to have all of these small devices all around the world that all need to be connected to the internet. Now, how do you do that when they're low powered? And that's where its specialism is. It also connects, it does Bluetooth speakers and things like that as well. So it's really at the more consumer retail end of things that we're looking at. It had a storming year a few years ago, back in 2021, and hasn't really done much since, but it's starting to turn around as we come through. So from a 3-point playbook point of view, we look at, is this a quality company, which is the very first point, and the dashboard has lots of green in it, which is great. The returns are pretty marked. They're grey, so they're sort of not really positive, not really negative. But the earnings per share are going up, the revenue's going up, the PEG ratio, which shows how much growth potential is in the company, is at 0.75, and the quality score is above the 64. We generally say is a good area to be in. And also the analysts have upped their analyst expectations by 5% in the last 7 days or so. So it's a good company. Valuations, it's got some decent valuations if it can hold these PE ratios. So it's historic PE ratios, which is the multiple we use. We just multiply potential earnings per share that the analysts say by the PE that the stock has played at in the past, and it's been an average of 76 over the last 20 years. So it's been quite highly rated. You get that because you're a high growth company, and what it hasn't exhibited, to my mind, is high growth there. But there's potential. Do I believe the value chart? We've got nothing to base it on. We've just got this one storming year, and the rest of them have been a bit. Yeah. So yeah, that's my answer to would I invest in it? Yeah.
But we are in the tech side of things, and one of the things that I said in our intro to the show is that yes, the war in the Middle East takes places with bombs, planes, boats, and so forth, but also on the internet. There's no doubt there's information being created that's false and stuff, but there's also hackers on the move, Liam, because this is the cheap warfare for a country like Iran. Could be that they use hackers to disrupt the American system. And that's what you have been looking into in your Thursday Tech.
Yeah, so the article's up on the platform, and we'll put it out in social media in a few hours. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Iran have a well-known sort of big network of hackers dotted around the world, mainly Russia, South Africa, South Asia, and Turkey is another place where they are. That Palo Alto thinks that they're coordinating a lot of these attacks. A lot of them have tactical autonomy. A lot of them sort of just go and break into places, like water treatment plants, and just amend the chemical balance. They could poison 10,000 people, that sort of thing, all because they just keep the default passwords. That's just one example that I've dragged up. So I've outlined 3 companies. CarKey is probably my favorite in this, where we've actually, yes, it's a very high quality company. Yes, it's going up in value. So yeah, question 1 is great.
You need to share your screen now as well. So
it was being shared.
How could you forget that?
I know.
Amateur.
I know. It's been a long day already. Yeah, so CarKey, very high quality score, earnings per share going up, PEG ratio below 2.5, well below 2.5. So everything looks pretty good, and it generates a lot of free cash flow. This is the company that actually works. They're sort of the special forces of the cyber warfare world, where they go in and disrupt an enemy comm system, military channels, and things like that. On a valuation point of view, they're in a really nice trend, and they've got sort of some good upside. They're not spectacular, but they're the lower risk option out of the 3 that I've identified today. So there's some, minimize your downside in the next 12 months, and actually the upside could be as much as 26%. And also they're in our buy zone. The MTIs are both green for the week and the daily, and we're above the 50 and the 200. So and there's going to be demand for their products. That goes without saying now.
We can say that tomorrow in our Friday face-off, we're gonna pick up the baton from here, because we're gonna put Akamai versus Fortinet cybersecurity stocks. We're gonna pitch them against one another. So if you see the show in Danish tomorrow at noon, you will get the benefit of that. Right now, Liam, I'm gonna change not your mind, but I'm gonna change your perspective, because last night we had numbers from one of the big ones, from BROADCOM, and they were very fine. Last week we saw Nvidia come out with excellent numbers, and they were basically pushed off a cliff. Right now, if we look pre-market, BROADCOM's going up. Are they going to be able to stick to a positive number?
Look at that! I've shared my screen. I think in my mind they probably will. Yeah, there's so much upside. Broadcom. I won't go through the first question. They're a fantastic company. Just look at these earnings that you're going through the roof and the PEG ratio. Those three numbers just tell me yes, I'm really interested in this. When you look at the value chart, I've just mapped out where investors have come in. On the red line in the past, you could actually push that up a little bit and actually stick that in the middle. And the green line is right at the top where the stock has peaked over the last year or so. So at minimum, the stock chart is telling us by the end of next year, we would see a 110% rise. And we could even see a 300% rise in the stock in that time. Will that happen? Yeah, that comes down to, just how do we have a burst of the bubble in AI? With Broadcom is slightly different from the NVIDIA, where NVIDIA have their own kit, their own designs. Broadcom are a bit like the Formula One team that you go to say, design me the racing car equivalent of a chip. And that's what Meta are doing. That's what OpenAI are doing. That's what a lot of companies are coming and doing with these guys. So they have the specialism of creating very fast, very focused chips. And that's why they're really going great guns at the moment. So they could carry on doing that because the demand is there, and that's what they've confirmed. But they have been in that downtrend, and we got no evidence to say that's going to break at the moment.
See, the timing is the last question in our 3-point playbook, and we need to swing by that just to confirm where we at the moment, and we see a lot of red.
We do see a lot of red. I mean, it's in a downtrend. So as soon as a stock, you can see here, Broadcom has really used its 50, and it's the 50-day moving average is the green line. The red line is the 20-day moving average. So it's used both of these lines, but it's really, when the crap hits the fan, it's used the green 50-day as a base to say, okay, I'm going to bounce off of that. When it stops bouncing, like here, this is where we sell. It enters into our sell zone, and then it starts using it as what we call resistance. So it actually it peaks here and then gets forced back down again. And what we're seeing is this wedge formation here, which will go in one of two directions. I would guess it's going to go up, and it's up 5% now, so it's up in this level today. So if it stays above its 50-day moving average, then it's a stock that we will almost certainly take a bit of a nibble at.
So far for Broadcom, and as said, article is up in our platform from Liam Thursday Tech. He does that every Tuesday and every Thursday. Take a closer look at the tech industry and the tech stocks for us. Hans-Henrik, we need to reactivate you. I don't hope that you're bouncing like a dead cat right now, but the number of the day that we have been waiting for, $124.62 billion, is Swedish. And what it comes from is I took a look at the biggest Swedish stocks out there by market cap. And number one, Investor AB, Spotify number two at 100 billion, Atlas Copco at 90, Volvo and Sandvik are coming in next. Hans-Henrik, Investor AB, what kind of company are we talking about?
It's a bit of a conglomerate. It owns a ton of different stocks. You showed the list before, and what they actually own a huge chunk of many of the ones below. They own Atlas, a lot of Atlas Copco, ABB, SEB Bank, AstraZeneca, Ericsson, Saab, whatever, Husqvarna, Electrolux, you name them, all the big heavy industrial stocks up there. So that is kind of what they do. They own stuff, and that is why when you look at quality, it's a bit hard because they are buying a bit more in some companies and they're selling off, divesting from another. So the earnings per share, the revenue, it's a bit fluctuating, but overall it's a rock solid entity that just owns a lot of things. Again, we cannot really look at the value chart and get anything completely meaningful out of it because they have some plans in this. There is some plans that they will divest from some of the companies. That means that the earnings per share is actually going down, but their equity is just ballooning. So maybe in 2 years they will have another stake in another huge company. They own also a big chunk, or they were part of starting that EQT. That is a big investment fund kind of thing that owns in a lot of different companies. So they're also a part owner there. So it's a really complex thing, and there is a lot of really wealthy people in Sweden and in Scandinavia that owns a chunk of of
To me,
investor.
not to stop your in your tracks here, but to me it sounds like an ETF basically.
You could compare it a bit like an ETF is mostly where there's a focus like S&P 500 or defense or something like that. But this is basically just the investor has been building. I think the company is, can't even recall. It's really old. I think it's something like 100 years. Oh, 1916. Yes. So it's really old and has just been building its portfolio. So it basically just owns Sweden.
And what's a little bit neat about it, and it's not too sort of saying that it's a buy for any of us, but is that it owns companies that you normally can't invest in because they're not on the stock exchange.
Yeah, they do have, for instance, the company 3, the mobile company that a lot of people know, at least in Scandinavia. They own I can't recall if it's all of it, but it's at least it's a big chunk of it, and that is a company you cannot normally buy into on the stock exchange. So buying into investor AB here is basically owning a chunk of that as well. So interesting company.
Interesting company, also interesting always, as always, having Liam Flavelle on our show in that sense that he's on every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock. I feel like he's a little bit of a special guest, but he is with us every single day in that sense that he's gives us the input for the Danish show as well.
You can look happy about it when you say that.
I'm wearing green. What more do you want? See, it's Irish, for crying out loud. So apart from that, we're coming up on St. Paddy's Day. Who knows what we come up with for that day, Liam? You can look forward to that. But I want to bring up a couple of things because, of course, earnings season is sort of tampering off. But we have a few things, Liam, coming up. We have Costco today, but we also have big energy company from Brazil, Petrobras, as some of the things, numbers that are interesting in this situation that we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, an oil company, they've probably been scrambling around for the last 48 hours thinking, what the hell do we put in our company guidance going forward?
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting run. Costco, always interesting to see how that reflects onto the US economy as well. So that's an important company to look at.
And I know that Hans-Henrik has his eyes glued towards tomorrow when we finally get some non-farm payrolls. Expectations, Hans-Henrik? Can we trust them?
Yes, you can trust them in the sense that they are not tampered with. That would be there are too many people involved in that. A bit like the moon landing, if that should be fake. There were 130,000 people involved in that, so someone would have spilled the beans. I think the same with this. There are a couple of thousand people involved in this, so yeah, we can trust the numbers. However, they do get revised because it's a statistical thing. So what I'd be looking at mostly is the revisions from earlier months.
If you spilled the beans in the moon landing, wouldn't they? They wouldn't. They'd float, wouldn't they?
No. This is getting out. No, we're getting out to.
Was that dad joke number 2 today?
Yeah, I think that's a dad joke right there. We're not gonna do that. But we will be back on air tomorrow at noon in Danish with the face-off, Friday face-off, Akamai versus Fortinet, and in English, Liam will be back on Tuesday. So keep an eye out for Liam's write-ups on tech on our platform and social media. Thanks for tuning in. Stay patient, stay selective, and let the numbers guide you, not the emotions. And quality, upside, and timing, it never goes wrong. Guys, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week. Liam and Hans-Henrik will see you tomorrow.